What should have been an ordinary, peaceful afternoon in the quiet neighborhood turned into something that would render everyone utterly silent. A young girl, brimming with innocence and affection, bent down to place a tender kiss atop her beloved companion's head. For her, the dog represented far more than just a pet. He was her confidant, her constant guardian, and the one presence that remained unwavering at her side. No one observing could have anticipated that such a simple gesture of tenderness would set off something so startling, something that would forever alter how those around her perceived their connection. The dog, a devoted companion who had lived with the family for many years, had consistently displayed calmness and a protective nature. He was the sort of friend who appeared to comprehend emotions without any need for words. This was precisely why the young girl placed her complete trust in him. However, the instant her small lips made contact with his coat, the stillness of the moment shattered. His response left everyone in the space paralyzed with astonishment, causing both her relatives and the visiting neighbors to stand frozen in utter disbelief. What transpired in those brief seconds following her kiss exceeded anything anyone might have foreseen. This wasn't merely a demonstration of the connection between a child and her canine companion. This was about something far more profound, an incident that illuminated just how remarkable animals can prove to be when expressing love, devotion, and the surprising ways they can react. Keep reading, because what the dog proceeded to do will make you reconsider everything you believed you understood about the relationship between people and their beloved pets. The young girl had consistently maintained an exceptional connection with her dog. From the instant he arrived at their home as a small puppy, he appeared to recognize that he was meant for her. She gave him the name Max, and through the passing years, they grew to be completely inseparable. Wherever her steps led, Max would follow close behind. Whether pursuing butterflies through the garden, resting beneath the towering oak tree, or peacefully lying beside her during moments of solitude, he transcended the role of mere pet. He became her constant shadow, her source of solace, and her wordless guardian. What rendered this particular moment so peculiar was that Max had never demonstrated a tendency toward unexpected reactions. He maintained a gentle, composed, and consistent demeanor, the type of dog that every parent felt comfortable having near their child. The young girl frequently embraced him, playfully pulled at his ears, and shared her private thoughts into his soft fur. Yet that kiss, delicate, pure, and overflowing with genuine affection, awakened something within him that nobody had anticipated. The family observed attentively, detecting that something extraordinary was on the verge of occurring. The dog's gaze changed direction, his frame grew rigid, and for the very first time, he displayed behavior that deviated from his usual patterns. This wasn't hostility or terror, but rather something considerably more enigmatic, something that caused everyone to draw nearer, curious about what might follow. The atmosphere within the room became dense, as though everyone present could sense the moment intensifying into something truly memorable. Then, precisely as the young girl beamed at him, Max executed his action, leaving every witness shocked, their eyes unable to turn away. Max's abrupt response cast a blanket of silence across the entire room. The young girl's mother became motionless, gripping the table's edge tightly, while her father shifted forward as though preparing to step between them. Even the neighbors who had arrived for afternoon tea found themselves unable to divert their attention from the unfolding scene. Max was no longer displaying the peaceful, consistent temperament they had all come to recognize. Something about that kiss had activated an aspect of his nature that had remained hidden until this moment. His focus remained fixed upon the young girl, his stance vigilant, almost as though he were shielding her from some invisible threat. The family members cast uncertain looks at one another, debating whether intervention was necessary. The girl, surprisingly, showed no signs of fear. On the contrary, she released a soft giggle, running her fingers through Max's fur as if everything remained perfectly normal. This juxtaposition, her childlike innocence set against the adult's mounting anxiety, only intensified the enigma. What caused Max to behave so differently at this moment? And what had he detected that remained imperceptible to everyone else? As murmured conversations began circulating among the neighbors, A secondary narrative quietly took shape. Some held the belief that dogs possessed instincts more acute than human perception, that perhaps Max had detected something that had escaped everyone else's notice. Others dismissed it as merely an unusual response, a transient moment that would quickly fade away. But one elderly neighbor, who had resided in the adjacent house for countless years, moved closer and whispered that she had witnessed this dog exhibit strange behavior on one previous occasion, many years past. Her statement introduced an additional dimension to the mounting tension, implying that this situation extended beyond a simple kiss, but involved a past that the family had never completely grasped. The room's atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive as Max's conduct became progressively more difficult to dismiss. His frame remained taut, his ears stood erect, and his attention never strayed from the young girl. She continued to laugh quietly, still completely oblivious to the discomfort building around her. From her perspective, Max was merely acting in a playful manner. However, the adults perceived something altogether different, a striking intensity within his eyes that suggested something beyond simple affection. Every passing second seemed elongated, as if the entire household was suspending its breath, anticipating whatever might occur subsequently. The elderly neighbor's statement continued to resonate in everyone's thoughts. She had alluded to a previous moment, an unusual incident that no one else seemed to recall. Now that recollection began to take on the quality of a foreboding presence. The mother spoke in hushed, nervous tones, attempting not to frighten her daughter, yet her inflection revealed the concern she was struggling to conceal. The father advanced a small distance forward, caught between his faith in the dog, who had never once caused harm to his family, and the parental impulse to safeguard his child. In that same moment, Max dipped his head marginally, adopting what resembled a protective posture, and produced a sound that couldn't quite be classified as a growl, yet wasn't his normal vocalization either. It transmitted a wave of unease throughout the room. The neighbors pressed in more closely, simultaneously fascinated and disturbed by what was transpiring before them. Some theorized that Max was detecting danger that lay beyond their comprehension, while others worried he was mere moments from executing something alarming. The young girl extended her hand once again, her fingers making contact with his coat, and in that precise instant, Max redistributed his weight, positioning himself to respond. Every heart present in the room accelerated, preparing for whatever was about to transpire. Precisely as everyone's anxiety crested toward its maximum point, Max abruptly became completely still, his ears rotating toward the window. A faint rustling noise originated from beyond the walls, scarcely detectable initially, but sufficient to cause the adults to shift with growing unease. The young girl angled her head inquisitively, yet Max's body maintained its stiff, alert, and defensive posture. The dog's sudden concentration on the external environment introduced a fresh, troubling element. Something was drawing near that had escaped everyone's attention until this very moment. The mother took hold of her daughter with care, speaking gentle words of comfort, yet even she couldn't dispel the creeping sense of dread climbing along her spine. The father moved gradually toward the door, attempting to glimpse outside, and the neighbors leaned inward, straining their ears to detect the subtle sounds. Then, without any forewarning, Max released a piercing bark that resonated far more powerfully than anticipated, a sound saturated with immediacy and alarm. This wasn't simply a dog responding to random noise. There existed intelligence, nearly a deliberate communication within the bark, as if he were attempting to convey something they remained unable to comprehend. Without warning, a shadow passed across the window's surface, and everyone drew a sharp breath. The dog's response intensified dramatically. His body had now achieved complete tension, muscles compressed like tightly wound coils. The young girl, rather than retreating to safety, reached in the direction of the window, captivated and trusting, while the adults remained paralyzed by apprehension. The tension suffusing the room became insufferable, the atmosphere laden with expectation. In that defining moment, it became undeniable that Max's peculiar reaction to her kiss had been merely the initial stage. The family and neighbors came to understand that whatever existed beyond those walls, Max had sensed its presence first, and the reality behind his conduct, along with the danger it suggested, exceeded anything they could have previously conceived. Something was approaching, and not a single person knew what would unfold in the moments ahead. The moment extended as Max propelled himself toward the window, barking with fierce intensity, his entire body quivering with desperate urgency. The young girl released a gasp, tightening her grip on her mother's hand, while the father threw the door wide just in sufficient time to witness what had captured the dog's complete attention. Positioned in the yard was neither a stranger nor a menace as everyone had dreaded, but rather a small, wounded puppy, scarcely capable of maintaining its footing. Max transformed immediately, his barking shifting into tender whimpers, and rushed outside, steering the fragile creature toward the young girl. This was a revelation both surprising and touching. Max had not been responding from a place of fear or hostility. The kiss had stirred something protective and primal deep within him, making him aware of a fellow creature requiring assistance. The family observed with wonder as Max carefully guided the puppy nearer, allowing the young girl to cradle it with utmost care. The neighbors, who had anticipated the gravest outcome, were now exchanging excited whispers about the astonishing connection between humans and animals. How dogs possess the ability to sense both danger and compassion in ways that people seldom comprehend. Precisely as the tension appeared to dissolve into collective relief, a concluding revelation surfaced. The young girl discovered a small, folded message attached to the puppy's collar. With shaking hands, she unfolded it. The written words were concise yet deeply unsettling. "This is only the beginning." The room descended into silence once more, hearts pounding rapidly, not from present danger, but from the understanding that Max's instincts had revealed a puzzle far more extensive than anyone could have predicted. In that single instant, the narrative evolved beyond a straightforward demonstration of love between a girl and her dog. It transformed into a story about trust, protection, and hidden truths awaiting revelation, leaving everyone contemplating what might transpire next and whether Max's exceptional intuition would prove necessary once again. The family assembled together, embracing both Max and the delicate puppy, their hearts gradually settling after the tumultuous sequence of tension and alarm. The young girl tenderly ran her fingers through Max's coat, speaking words of appreciation and devotion. She gazed down at the newly discovered puppy, already experiencing a bond that only a child could establish with such natural ease. What had commenced as an uncomplicated kiss had unveiled so much more: Max's unwavering loyalty, his remarkable intuition, and the extraordinary manner in which animals can perceive things that remain invisible to human awareness. The neighbors, who had been observing in stunned amazement, started to express their smiles and approval, marveling at the connection between the young girl and her devoted dog. The elderly neighbor, who had provided warnings about Max's peculiar behavior from years past, reclined with an expression of understanding recognition.